All right, I think we're ready to start. So hello everyone and welcome to the CONVERGE webinar series. My name is Robin Dillon Merrill and I am the Program Director for the Humans, Disasters and the Built Environment Program in the Division of Civil, Mechanical and Manufacturing Innovation at the National Science Foundation. Today, during this 1-hour webinar, you are going to learn more about the NSF-supported Social Science Extreme Events Research, the SSEER network, and the 2018 census. This represents a first attempt to place the members of this global research community on an interactive map and to highlight their wide range of skills and disciplinary expertise. SSEER is part of a much larger NSF CONVERGE initiative. CONVERGE is a newly established NSF Natural Hazards Engineering Research Infrastructure Resource, where that becomes the acronym NERI, so it's a NERI resource, headquartered at the Natural Hazards Center at the University of Colorado Boulder. CONVERGE is dedicated to linking social science, engineering, natural science, and interdisciplinary research communities together to advance new knowledge, improve rapid response research, and enhance the broader impact of this work. So your presenters today will include Lori Peak, who is the director of the Natural Hazards Center and a professor in the Department of Sociology at the University of Colorado Boulder. And Lori serves as the principal investigator for CONVERGE. And Mason Matthews and Hao-Rui Wu, who are both postdoctoral research associates at the Natural Hazards Center, they will both also be presenting. Please note that the presentations will last for about 45 minutes, and with the remaining 10 to 15 minutes being dedicated to questions and answers. If you have questions, please use the question box on Zoom. Again, welcome to this webinar series, and thank you for joining us today.
Okay. Thank you so much, Robin, for the introduction and the support of these new initiatives. On behalf of the entire team at the Natural Hazards Center, we too want to welcome the participants to this webinar. Over 200 persons have signed up, and for those who are not able to attend, we are recording this webinar. It will be posted on our CONVERGE webinar page online at hazards.colorado.edu/converge/webinar-series. In addition to welcoming all attendees, the team here also wanted to offer special thanks to the National Science Foundation and to the Humans, Disasters and the Built Environment Program, and especially to our original program officer for this work, David Mendonca, as well as to our current program officer who you just met, Robin Dillon Merrill, for their support in developing the SSEER network and associated platforms. We also want to thank Esri and our partner, Jeff Barani, who is the Disaster Response Program Operations Manager, as well as his team members and colleagues, Shelby Hines, who is a Solutions Engineer, and Haley Miller, who is interning at Esri this year. Finally, I want to acknowledge two of our graduate students here at the center, Simone Domingue, who is a PhD student in sociology, and Emma Hines, who is a master's student in geography. They have supported every aspect of this webinar and will be helping to monitor the Q&A box today to ensure that we can answer as many questions as possible at the close of the webinar. We have identified 3 primary objectives for today's webinar. First, we will offer some brief background and context regarding the development of the Social Science Extreme Events Research Network. Second, Mason will offer a demonstration of the SSEER interactive web map. And third, Hao-Rui and I will share the descriptive results of the 2018 SSEER census. So what is SSEER? SSEER is a new NSF-supported network and online platform for social science hazards and disaster researchers. The mission of SSEER is twofold. It is first to identify and connect social science researchers to one another, to interdisciplinary teams, and to communities at risk to and affected by hazards and disasters. Second, the mission of SSEER is also to amplify and advance ethically grounded rigorous social science hazards and disaster research. We decided to develop SCEAR in part in response to long-standing calls for a better characterization of the hazards and disaster research workforce. In fact, SCEAR is partially dedicated to answering some of the questions raised in the landmark 2006 National Research Council Consensus Study, Facing Hazards and Disasters, Understanding Human Dimensions. In that monograph, the Committee on Disaster Research in the Social Sciences dedicated an entire chapter to the present and future hazards and disaster research workforce. In that report, the authors noted that, quote, the size and composition of the hazards and disaster workforce will significantly determine the extent to which the social sciences in general can respond forcefully to 21st century demands for basic social science knowledge and its application. However, the committee went on to note that it, quote, does not have a precise accounting of the numbers of social scientists from respective disciplines currently engaged in hazards and disaster research. Neither government agencies nor professional associations systematically collect data on this research workforce. As that committee observed then, and we acknowledge now, such an accounting is important to ensure that the next generation of researchers is being appropriately supported and that new researchers are being recruited from the existing pool of social scientists. The growing number of natural hazards, technological accidents, and willful disasters that confront humankind will require the support and development of this workforce. SCEAR is also a response to recent National Science Foundation support for extreme events research and reconnaissance networks, also known as the EERs, for different disciplinary communities. During a future CONVERGE webinar, we will introduce the broader community to this network of EERs, which currently includes the long-standing Geotechnical Extreme Events Reconnaissance Association, the Social Science Extreme Events Research Network, the Structural Extreme Events Reconnaissance Group, the Nearshore Extreme Events Reconnaissance Group, and the Interdisciplinary Extreme Events Research Network, designed to link these different disciplinary communities together. For today, though, please know that SCEAR is part of a larger NSF research network. And while each of these EERs has different disciplinary foci, we are all working together to develop shared research ethics, data collection, and data sharing protocols. SCEAR is still very much a network in formation. In July of 2018, we released the SCEAR Network Survey, which is a short 7-minute survey that all social scientists who study hazards and disasters were invited to complete. In August of 2018, I wrote a call to social scientists inviting more members to sign up and to please share the call with friends and colleagues. Today, Mason and Halray and I will share with you the resultant interactive map and census results for 2018. But please note that we will continue to regularly update the network map that we will be showing you today as new members join. And each year, we will release the annual SCEAR census results. For the duration of the webinar, we are going to work to answer the following questions. First, how many social science hazards and disaster researchers are there? Where are these researchers located? What disciplines do they represent, and what is their topical and methodological expertise? What disasters have they studied? And what is the demographic composition of the research workforce? So how many social science hazards and disaster researchers are there? As of December 31st, 2018, 683 social scientists from around the world have joined the SCEAR database. We know, of course, that this is not yet a complete census. But again, we will continue to update this database as new users continue to join, and we invite you and others to please sign up, and you can see the hazards.colorado.edu/join-SSEER link at the bottom of your screen. The next question we wanted to answer is, where are these researchers located? As this figure on your screen shows, the vast majority of researchers who have joined SSEER to date are located in the Americas. And of those 552 respondents in the Americas, 500 are in the United Nations designated Northern American subregion, and 500 of those researchers are in the United States. It should be noted, though, that our networks and connections at the Natural Hazard Center are most extensive throughout North America. We know that it will take time, effort, and new partnerships to reach researchers in other world regions, especially those who speak languages other than English. Therefore, we strongly encourage you to please invite your social science colleagues to join SSEER to ensure that this is a truly global representation of this extraordinary community of scholars. Another way to establish where researchers are located is through placing them on an interactive map. At this point, I'm going to turn over the presentation controls to Mason Matthews, and he is going to provide a demo of the interactive map, which was created in partnership with our colleagues at Esri.
Hello, this is Mason. Let me just share my screen with you quickly. I want to thank everybody again for joining us today in the webinar. We're so glad to have you, and I'd really especially like to thank all of those of you who signed up for the SSEER platform and who filled out the survey. Today I'm just going to do a brief demonstration of the web map, and we're fully aware that everybody's using these types of maps on their phones every day and in their cars, but we thought it might be nice just to go over a few of the other functions that might be on this web map that people might not be familiar with. So I'll just start with the basic navigation. You can just use the touchpad on your laptop or your mouse to kind of scroll around. You can zoom in and out of the map to see different areas, scroll around. You can also use these buttons at the top left here to zoom in and out. And this house symbol up here allows you to go back to the original extent of the map. So if you ever need to go back to a starting point, you can do so. The search bar up here will allow you to search for a specific city if you're interested in zooming into a specific place on the map. And then you'll see over here on the left-hand side, this panel of, these are called widgets, and the widget here is the About widget, which has some more information about SSEER. And we have links here so you can get some more information about the project if you're interested in that. Or, a very important link, of course, is the sign up link. So if you want to sign up for the protocol platform, you can do so here. One of the interesting things that we have, one of the widgets is a base map widget. So depending on what you're doing, you can change base maps. So if you're interested in a view that has, let's say, a street map, you can change your base map to that. Or if you're interested in imagery, you can change to that. So there are 12 different options here for base maps. So you can change those based on your needs. The other widget we have here is a layer widget. So you can click on different layers in the map. So let me zoom out here. And I will switch back to that. So you can change the different layers, turn them on and off in this widget. For example, you can turn on a series of UN subregion layers here, and we've decided to use the UN regions because we're hoping to incorporate UN disaster statistics and also human development indices. So eventually we'll be able to match those with the SCR census data. So that's why we're using the UN global regions. And then you can also look at this from kind of a map view to see which layers you have active at that particular time. Now, probably the most interesting widget is the query widget, which is how we'll actually find one another on the map. So we sent out an email several weeks ago to all the people who signed up for SCR, and you were able to search for your dot on the map. So you can do that by going to the SCR researchers here and typing in your name. So I will type in a name here, Laura Stowe, and I will then click apply here at the bottom, and I zoom into Laura Stowe's location on the map. You can see her profile information here on the left-hand side, or if I click on the dot, you can also see the profile information here. One little quirk that we have found is people are searching for their dots. Sometimes if people are in the exact same location, you'll have to click this arrow up here, the next feature, and you'll see that there are a couple people in the exact same location, so you kind of have to, you might have to scroll through to find that person. But if you search for them by name, they'll just appear in this area here. Let's just put in another name, just William. Let's see, I'll put in William, and I get all the Williams, and now I'll just go to William Bill Lovecamp and click apply again, and I'll just zoom automatically directly from Laura to William. And you can also search for people outside of the United States. So I will look for Victor Marcazzini, and I zoom all the way to Brazil. And so we can zoom out to get a better idea of exactly where. São José dos Campos. And so that's the way we can search for people by name. You can also search for people by title. So if I want to see where all the associate professors who have signed up for SCR are, I can just click that in and hit apply, and it should zoom me out to all the people who have associate professor in their title. So I can get a better idea of where all the people are located who have that particular title. One thing we found that you need to do when searching is to empty the previous search query. Then we can also search by department. So if I want to look for people who are in anthropology departments, I can search there, and it should show me all the people who signed up who are in anthropology departments. And if I am searching for a particular organization, I can do that. I could say University of Washington, perhaps. And I should zoom all the people who are in the University of Washington who signed up for SCR should appear on the map there. And we've also made it possible for people to search by location. So if you want to find somebody in a particular city, or let's say a state, maybe we can look for all the SCR researchers who are in the state of Florida. Click apply. And we get a map of all the people who signed up in Florida. And then if I want to select a particular person from that group, I just click here and zoom in, and I get their profile information. And then you can also search by country. So let's say I will search by Japan. And I get all the researchers who signed up who are in Japan. One of the nice things about, well, actually we have you can also search by the different UN regions, as I said before. So let's say we want to go to Northern Europe. And you don't have to always type them in. You can just search through the scroll down bars here as well. And then we get all of the people who are signed up in Northern Europe. One of the nice things about the way this query widget is set up is we can also combine different categories. So let's say we want to find all the people in Northern Europe who identified themselves in the survey as core researchers. And we can just combine the queries here and hit apply, and should provide the list of all the people who are in Northern Europe and consider themselves to be core researchers. So we can go back and change to see perhaps periodic researchers, and then we get a different list. So there are ways to do combination searches, and we are working on all kinds of different new layers of information that we'll be adding to the survey. Not seeing presentation. So okay, there we are. So so we'll be adding some of those other layers that those of you who filled out the survey are familiar with. People, your disciplinary backgrounds, methodological skills used, the phases of disaster management that you specialize in, the types of hazards and disasters that that you study, and even a list of specific events that were studied, and keywords. So we'll also be adding different widgets, and we'd love any kind of feedback that people have on ways that we can make the map better. So any type of feedback, we'd love to hear from you. And that's pretty much all for my demonstration. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you so much, Mason, for the demonstration. And thank you. It was great to see. I saw a few chat boxes pop up with people saying how exciting this is. And just I wanted to say thank you so much for all the time and effort you have put into this. And as Mason is alluding to here, we have additional layers that we're going to be adding to this map based on the SSEER survey data that we have received from the SSEER researchers who have signed up thus far. But as Mason was also mentioning, we're experimenting with adding additional widgets to the map to increase its functionality, while also experimenting with overlaying additional data sets. So I saw that Wendy Walsh, for example, asked whether we could search for researchers by their FEMA region. And so we have done some experimentation with, for example, overlaying with exactly that information with the FEMA regions. We've also done some work with looking at what would happen if we use the CDC Social Vulnerability Index, so we could look at researchers in proximity to especially vulnerable populations. And so as Mason ended his great demonstration with an invitation and a call for additional feedback on how you could see yourselves potentially using this map, we really do want to hear from you, because we want this to be more than a static map. We want it to become a dynamic, interactive environment where researchers can really find one another. So thank you again, Mason. And so now we're going to move back to presenting some of the results from the 2018 SSEER census. And we're going to focus on some of the additional questions that all of you who have taken the time to sign up so far for the SSEER network have helped us to answer. And so without further ado, Hauray, I'm going to stop sharing here and turn this over to you. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Laurie. So I'm very happy to report some statistical results about the survey. To begin with, I would like to point out that there is no agreed upon definition for which disciplines are included in social science. So these blurred boundaries are related to what researchers study and the approaches they use in their work. Generally speaking, however, most social scientists are concerned with the connections between individuals, groups, institutions, and society. In the SSEER census, we ask researchers to identify their primary discipline, or disciplines for those with multidisciplinary training. As shown in this figure, to date, the most common disciplines represented in the census include disaster science, sociology, geography, and public administration, although over a dozen other social science disciplines are widely represented here. In addition to disciplinary training, we asked the SSEER researchers to identify up to 5 keywords that best captured or described their expertise. We received over 1,000 unique responses to this question, which we will be sharing with the researcher's profile on the SSEER map. But the top 10 most relevant types of expertise include, you can see that on the right, community resilience, disaster recovery, vulnerability reduction, pre-disaster preparedness, risk management, risk communication, emergency response, climate change, disaster mitigation, and risk analysis. In the SSEER survey, we asked the researchers to share information about their highest level of education completed. And as a result show, nearly 7 out of 10 respondents have completed a doctoral degree in a related social science discipline. We also asked about their primary professional status. Most of the researchers that have signed up to date are academic researchers or students, although those from the private, nonprofit, and government sectors, as well as independent researchers, have signed up as well. In the 2006 Facing Disasters and Hazards study, the authors raised a number of questions regarding the state of the hazard and disaster research workforce. In response to their calls for a more precise description of the levels of involvement among the members of this community, we asked SSEER researchers to select which of the following categories best describes their current status as a hazards and disaster researcher. As you can see in this figure, just over half, or 52% of respondents marked that they are core researcher, meaning they strongly self-identify as a hazards and disaster researcher, have a deep commitment to the field, and have engaged in hazards and disaster research for a sustained amount of time. The second part, about 21% or 1/5 marked that they are periodical researchers, meaning they are not primarily engaged in hazards and disaster research, but focus on related topics from time through one's professional career. And 6% of respondents said they are situational researchers, as not previously trained or involved in the hazards field, but had the opportunity to study new phenomena based on the situational events. An example of situational researcher is someone who undertook a study after his or her community was affected by a major disaster. And finally, about 21% of the SEER respondents identified as emerging researcher. This category includes students and others who are new to the field and who are still learning about the history, theory, and methods. Social scientists often use a range of methods and approaches to collect and analyze data. To capture the range of skills among this community, we ask researchers to identify their primary approaches to data collection and data analysis, as summarized here. From this bar chart, you can see in-depth interview, surveys, case study methods, and qualitative contact analysis were most frequently selected. But as these figures shows, the SEER researchers have a wide range of methodological expertise. Social scientists who research hazards and disasters often identify themselves by the disaster stages, the disaster types, topics, and the population groups that they studied. Accordingly, the SEER survey includes a range of questions to better understand the expertise that these researchers possess. This figure shows the different stages across the disaster life cycle that the SEER researchers have studied, with the disaster preparedness being the most common phrase in life cycle. However, SEER researchers obviously hold expertise across the entire life cycle from medication to long-term recovery. These numbers shows here, as several of the other figures do not sum up to the sample size of 683 because researchers had the option to choose one than more stage. These figures include a summary of disaster types studied. The majority of SEER researchers studied natural hazard, including geophysical, meteorological, hydrological, climatological, biological, and extraterrestrial events. In addition, some of the respondents indicate that they also studied technical hazards, such as industrial accidents, transport accident, and toxic exposures. The smallest portions of SEER respondents indicate that they focus on terrorism or other willful acts of violence. To get more specific information, we asked the SEER researchers to identify up to 10 disaster events that they have studied during their career. We received numbers of unique responses to this question, which will eventually be shared in each researcher's profile in the future version of the SEER map. For now, though, it is interesting to note that the top 10 most frequently studied disasters have all occurred in the 21st century, and all but one of these events happened in the United States. Again, this result should be interpreted with care since this is not yet a completed census of the entire social science community, but these results are suggestive of which events receive the most attention and in which part of the world. Okay, so this is part of my presentation. I would like to give the control back to Laurie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray. So I'm going to share my screen again. And get us caught up after your excellent presentation. So thank you so much, Ray, for the overview of those results and for all of your work on the data analysis and data presentation. The final set of questions that the 2018 SEER census is allowing us to answer is related to the demographic composition of the hazards and disaster research workforce. The demographic composition of the workforce has long been of interest to leaders within the field, as again evidenced by the 2006 Facing Hazards and Disaster Research Report, as well as numerous other publications. In that 2006 report, however, they made the case that in an ideal world, our hazards and disaster research workforce would, quote, be of adequate size, would reflect the diversity of the nation, and include researchers who have both basic and applied research interests that are capable of carrying out disciplinary, multidisciplinary, and interdisciplinary research. The natural, technological, and willful disasters that confront humankind in the foreseeable future require such a research workforce in the social sciences, end quote. So with this in mind, and with the calls from many others within our field to better characterize the socio-demographics of our research workforce, we ended the survey by asking a series of questions about the respondents' age, their numbers of years working in the hazards and disaster field, their race and ethnicity, and their gender identity. SCEAR researchers who have responded to the survey thus far range in age from 21 years of age to 78 years old. The average age of the SCEAR researchers is about 42 years, and the average SCEAR researcher has been working in this field for just over 10 years. In terms of racial and ethnic identity, the majority of SCEAR researchers, about nearly 64%, identified as non-Hispanic white, with the remainder of the researchers self-identifying as shown in this figure and according to, admittedly, categories that are most widely used in the US Census definition around race and ethnicity. We also ask SCEAR respondents about gender and gender identity, and as shown on this figure, more females than males or non-binary or third gender persons responded to the 2018 SCEAR survey as shown on your screen. So as we bring this first CONVERGE webinar to a close and then open up with our remaining time for question and answer, we wanted to again underscore and emphasize the current and future visions for this work. In particular, as we move forward with SCEAR and in partnership and collaboration with this much broader community, we want to underscore why we are collecting this data and what our hope is for creating a dynamic, interactive map and engaging in network building among this extraordinary global community. In particular, we are concerned over the coming years with continuing to create and update this novel SCEAR database and interactive map for use of the members of this growing global community. We want to do this work so that we can help to play a role in democratizing the research and engagement process before, during, and after disaster strikes by encouraging even more effective cross-disciplinary collaborations. By placing researchers on a map and highlighting their extraordinary range of skills and expertise, we hope this will serve as a resource for connecting researchers with practitioners and policymakers to advance ethically grounded disaster research and then to move it into action. When disaster strikes, we hope especially that this map will become invaluable in terms of identifying locally affected researchers to ensure that they are recognized and included in post-disaster research efforts, And during all other non-disaster times, again, we hope that this map and the associated database will continue to be a resource for this community. This is part of the much larger CONVERGE effort that we hope we will be able to share about in much greater detail over this coming year, and an effort to work together to ensure that research is holistic, rigorous, and always ethically grounded. We also want to work together to increase the visibility and the positive impact of this global and growing social science hazards and disaster research community by publicly articulating who we are, what we know, and how we can use our knowledge and skills to reduce hazards and disaster losses, especially among the most marginalized people and the most vulnerable places in the world. And finally, as communities the world over confront more extreme weather events, we look forward to working together with the SCEAR community, as well as with the other NSF-supported EERs and other research networks, to advance a research agenda that is grounded in concerns regarding justice, equity, and risk reduction for, again, the most marginalized people and vulnerable places around the world. And so with that, we're going to pause right now, and Mason and Hauray and I would like to use the remaining time to respond to any questions or comments that the participants on this webinar have shared. And again, I want to really acknowledge and thank our partners at ESRI for helping to make this happen today, the National Science Foundation for the support of this effort, and especially to all of the social scientists who have signed up for this platform and are helping us to make it better and more useful. And finally, a big, tremendous thanks to Emma and Simone, who have been monitoring the Q&A box all along and are now going to share some of the questions that have come about during this webinar. And Hauray and Mason, if you can please make sure that your speakers are on so that you can respond to questions right now as well. And thank you again, everyone, for listening to this webinar and for joining us today. And we have about 17 minutes remaining for questions and answers. And so I see that Emma and Simone have organized a number of questions up here. And so Mason, I see there are several up here about the map. And so would you like to start by responding to some of the questions about the map? Thank you.
Sure. I see a question here. If someone puts in their home address, this can be a privacy security issue. Can this be changed? And the question is, or the answer is absolutely, this can be changed. You can just contact us and we will change that to any address that you want. We're kind of suggesting that people put in perhaps a working address, and for geocoding purposes, it's always better if you can put in a street address rather than a mailing address. That always works better, but please do just contact us. And as people sign up, we'll be sending out emails to those individuals so that they can check to make sure their information is correct on the map and the location of their dot is correct on the map. So we just sent out a round of those emails and got responses back, and that's the way that we can change any of the information you would like us to change on the map.
Nice. Thank you, Mason. And I see there is another question up here from Emil and from Suzanne about who qualifies as a researcher, and also, again, clarifying how we define periodic versus emerging versus core versus situational for the purposes of SCEAR. And so in terms of who qualifies as a researcher, we really have left this up to persons to self-identify as researchers. And so it really has been about self-identification. And obviously before anyone appears on the map or in the database, there's been an extensive amount of data processing and data cleaning that has occurred on this end. But to date, everyone who has signed up for the survey and has taken the 7 minutes or so to fill out the survey, they all seem to be self-identified social scientists who are involved at some level in hazards and disaster research, which then really brings us to the second question about how did we define and operationalize this emerging versus core versus situational researcher. And so we actually came up with the first three of those categories, the core researcher, periodic, and situational. Those were actually defined and operationalized in that 2006 National Academies report. And then we added the fourth category of emerging researcher to really capture students and others who are very new to the field. And so we took that report and then we created these operational definitions. So a core researcher is someone, again, who strongly self-identifies as a hazards and disaster researcher. They've exhibited this deep commitment to the field, and they've engaged in hazards and disaster research for a sustained amount of time. The periodic researchers are those who they periodically conduct hazards and disaster research studies from time to time throughout their careers, but being a hazards and disaster researcher may not be their primary or main identity. Then there are the situational researchers who, again, may not have been trained at all in this field, but their communities might have been struck low by disaster and they launched an investigation. And so they undertook a study after their community was affected by a major disaster, for example. And then that final category, again, was the emerging researcher category, which included students and those new to the field. And so the ways that people ended up in those categories is we offer those operational definitions for those four categories in the survey, and then the researchers self-selected into the categories. So thank you, Suzanne, and thank you so much, Emil, for the question. And so I'm scrolling back through the questions here, and I'll just go ahead and read these out for you, Mason and Hooray. So Mason, there was a question from Charlene about on the disciplinary background. Do you have something for healthcare was her question. Do you want to say something about that, Mason?
And this one, I'm wondering if Hooray can help me on this question. I'm not sure I recall on the survey if we exactly had a disciplinary category. But one thing that is possible is there's an other option. So people can click on the other option and fill in their specific disciplinary background. So even if it's not in the survey, there is an option to add, specific disciplinary backgrounds.
And we do have, I went back to that discipline slide that Hooray shared. And so Charlene, in answer to your question, there is indeed a public health and epidemiology category in there that it looks like so far 53 persons who signed up for the database. Check that off. Hooray, is there anything else you want to say in response to that question?
That is right. I think that's all. So we do have the public health, but the other things is like the medical field and the nursing. Sometimes it's challenge for us to group into that social science. So we just have a very general idea about that. So we put the public health over there.
Okay, thank you, Hooray. Mason, there is another question here from Diego where he says a few of us might want to be related to different regions. So for example, Diego is currently in the US, we know at the University of Delaware Disaster Research Center, but he is Argentinian and he would be very much interested for others in his country to be able to find him. And so Mason, we actually had this case come up with Elon Kelman, who has the dual affiliations in the UK, but also in Norway. So Mason, will you respond to this question and talk about how we've been handling those persons who have could have multiple dots on a map, so to speak?
Well, so far we've just had a single dot. We've had multiple affiliations appear in people's profiles. If people wanted, we could certainly add a nationality category, and if need be, we could also do 2 dots on the map. Again, that's why we're so interested in getting feedback from the map users to find out the best way that we can make this a useful tool for all of you who sign up for SCR.
Nice. Okay, thank you, Mason. So Tony asked us, is this map available to the Research Data Alliance? And so right now, this map is live. As Mason said during his demo of the map, we first sent out an email to the 683 researchers who had completed the survey, who we verified their entries, and we asked them to check the dot on the map before we rolled this map out. And so I am here to report today that we already have almost 200 more persons who have signed up for the SCR map since that December 31st, 2018 end date, when we rolled out this first version of the map. And so we're going through and cleaning those 200 additional entries. And so, Tony, right now the map is absolutely available, and I'll go back to that last slide that has the link to the map. And so it is publicly available currently, but before we are making sure to check with each researcher to have them verify their entries on the map, because sometimes dots end up in odd places and so forth. And so Mason already answered this question about the home address. And then Kailash in India asked us, will email and telephone number be available on the map? And so as of right now, we have not made that information available on the map. And in this era, most people are pretty quickly Googleable. If I think I just made that word up, but we can find most people via Google pretty quickly. And so right now we have not added contact information onto the map. And I think if we were going to do something like that, we do obviously have their location on the map. I think that would be something that we would want to raise with the SCR community, which is something right now I'm going to pause and kind of put a plug in for something. We're going to be sending out to the SCR researchers an invitation to join a Slack channel via Design Safe. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Slack is just an online platform that allows you to join channels and to talk to other people. And so we have created an SCR Slack channel. And so we have instructions for how you can sign up for that via Design Safe, and we will be making sure to get that out to our SCR network members. But this kind of really good question that you asked, Kailash, is the kind of thing that we would want to raise to the SCR community and really talk to them about. But currently, we do not have emails or phone numbers up there. So Ranja asked, can your database handle a person with 1 degree in nursing, 2 in engineering, and current studies in gender and disability? And so actually that is a great question. And Ray, do you want to say something about how in the analysis of the data, we have absolutely been able to count people who have selected multiple entries? So do you want to say something about that and answer that question?
Exactly, that's right. So according to the questionnaire, we asked people what is a primary disciplines the best describe you. So if you choose a multiple ones, we would calculate in different categories. So actually for that bar chart, we only shows that different people choose their disciplines. I think you might choose multiple and your choice has already been counted over there. And also we will have to calculate about how many disciplines you chose in the survey. And in the future, we will have another project. It's called ICR Interdisciplinary Project. We might put you over there as well.
Okay, thank you, Ray. So Louise also asked this question about whether researchers could add their email and maybe other information like LinkedIn profiles to their researcher page. And so again, this is part of the something that we're really grappling with on this end is really thinking about, will we send out every 6 months? Will we send out once a year to all of the SCR researchers who have already signed up an invitation to update their profile? And so right now, Louise, this is a great question, and some of our mentors and advisors for this project had also asked, will you make it possible that researchers could put their CV up there or links to their websites, for example, to follow your question through? And so we've definitely been thinking about that, but also then thinking about maintenance of the database and how do we make sure that researcher profiles are kept up to date while also not overwhelming the researchers. And so again, right now we're sort of thinking that every 6 months to 1 year, we'll just send a quick email out to the SCR researchers asking them to validate their profile and to ensure that they still want to be a part of the map. And once we get all of these additional layers up there from version 1.0 of the survey, then I think we can start thinking about and responding to these wonderful requests from the community about what are the additional layers that you would like to see added to make this map as useful and usable as possible. Okay, so Mason. Oh, okay, so Mason, here's a question for you about, what about this question about folks who may not want to give their address or appear on the map, but then can they still be in the database? And this is also something that we've really went through already. So Mason, do you want to speak to that? Really good question.
Sure, they'll be in the database. They just won't appear on the map. So they will be counted in the census, and their information will be counted in all those census categories that they filled out in the survey. They just won't appear on the map.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And thank you so much for asking that question, because we did have about 10 researchers who are in the census and are counted in the census, but they did click off at the beginning of the SCR survey where they said, please do not place me on the map. So they are not on the map. So really good question. Scott asked us a question about whether the research community is engaging with the business and non-research community in this effort. Said, I see that Esri is part of this, but what about others? And so in terms of engaging with other communities, our hope is, again, that by first and foremost organizing and identifying the members of the social science research community, and eventually, as how Ray said, also working and moving towards building out the interdisciplinary science and engineering extreme events research network, that once we get this effort moving forward, then I think and hope that we will be in a better position to build exactly those kinds of networks, but always collecting examples. Every time we have shared about this effort, Mason, how Ray or I have talked about it anywhere, people have come up to us and said, did you know about this network? Did you know about that network? And so we are definitely looking forward to continuing to build those partnerships. So thank you so much for asking that, Scott. So now I see a question from Gina, who asked about, she said, are you interested in also capturing the practitioner side or boundary people of social science? I see great utility in this tool in helping government coordinators bring together researchers with practitioners who have applied research questions. Is there value in capturing individuals who may not identify as a researcher anymore, but still very much identify with the social science community? And so thank you so much for saying that, Gina. And I think right now, as how Ray showed in the census results, right now we have absolutely, the vast majority of people who have signed up for the database so far really obviously are identifying as academic researchers or as students in this effort. And so I think moving forward, really thinking about how to, I love your language of the boundary spanners and thinking about how do we make those connections, and knowing that you are one of those people who have made those connections for so long, looking forward to learning from and talking more to you about this. And so here, JC, I think you're going to get final word on this because we are almost out of time. So JC says, until we increase the visibility of researchers from outside Northern America, how do we make sure that the database doesn't further the unequal power relations between Western researchers and those from elsewhere in the world? And so JC, thank you so much for saying that, sharing that, and for the ways that you have continued to lead a conversation to try to get us to think about these issues. And so as JC noted, when we look at where are the researchers who have signed up for SSEER thus far, we know that this is not a total and complete census of social scientists around the globe. And so in order to build out this database and to ensure that we're not reifying these power dynamics that JC has written extensively about, this is where it takes this partnership, this connection, and this ask from all of our SSEER members to please share the link to join. Victor from Brazil, he already said, we only have 5 dots in Brazil. I would like to be the ambassador there to help get more Brazilian researchers on the map. And so we just ask that we have that kind of partnership, and we know that some of this is going to take making sure that we translate some of our resources beyond our English-only format that we have currently. And so I'm sorry that we did not get to all of the questions today, but we thank you all for joining us for this webinar. We are honored to have launched this CONVERGE webinar series, and we thank Robin for suggesting that this might be a format to get the word out to this wonderful community. And so without further ado, please know that if we didn't get to your questions, we will respond to them via email, and we will be posting this webinar. And please see a number of resources up here on your screen. And on behalf of Mason, Hauray, and the entire Natural Hazard Center team, thank you so much for joining us today, and please have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.